Hello and welcome to this session. This is Professor Farhat. In this session, we'll keep looking at the trust security criteria and how the trust security criteria as a criteria are integrated within the COSO integrated framework. In the prior session, we looked at the 5 components of the COSO integrated framework, which are the control environment, the risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, and monitoring. Then we discussed the 5 principles within each component. For example, for control environment, the 4 principles for risk assessment, 3 principles for control environment, total of 7 principles. Then we explained that within these principles there are many points of focus, and within the point of focus we can add those trust services criteria as points of focus within the COSO integrated framework. And this is how the trust services criteria are integrated within the framework. Then we discussed also, as we were going through the control activities, once we got to control activities and specifically the 12th principle, we added the supplemental material. In this session, we're going to go a step further because this is one component. So when the trust services criteria are guidelines used to evaluate the security criteria, but they are divided into 2 parts. The common criteria that apply to all 5 categories of trust services, which we looked at them earlier, which are the COSO integrated framework. They are rules or standards that every category must meet regardless of their specific function. Now, in addition to those 5 components with their principles and points of focus, we have additional category for each trust service criteria except security, because securities will have a common criteria to all. So what we will discuss here are the additional criteria, additional specific criteria that are specific to each of the 4 following category. Availability. So if you're conducting a SOC engagement specifically about availability, you want to integrate the A series, additional information, ensure that what's availability, ensure that information and system are accessible to authorized users when needed. Now we're going to have additional guidelines, additional criteria for availability. The same thing for processing integrity, which means ensure that system processing is complete, accurate, timely, and authorized. PI series, notice availability A series, processing integrity PI series. So those are additional categories, additional criteria that we can use as we are undergoing a SOC engagement. Confidentiality means protects information that should not be disclosed to unauthorized users. C series and privacy, the P series. What's privacy? Ensures that the personal information of users is collected, used, disclosed, and disposed of properly and securely. Now notice we don't have an S series for the security. Why? Because the common criteria apply to securities. Basically, security is across the board. Let's go ahead and get started by discussing each of these additional criteria, starting with availability. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, farhatlectures.com.
Farhat Accounting Lectures is a supplemental educational tool that's going to help you with your CPA exam preparation as well as your accounting courses. My CPA material is aligned with your CPA review course such as Becker, Roger, Wiley, Gleam, Miles. My accounting courses are aligned with your accounting courses broken down by chapter and topics. My resources consist of lectures, multiple choice questions, true-false questions, as well as exercises. Go ahead, start your free trial today.
Starting with availability, and it's going to be A1.1, managing processing capacity. This means that the entity must actively manage and monitor how much capacity its system are using and have a plan to increase the capacity when needed to meet goals. Simply put, we want to make sure we're looking when it comes to availability, do we have enough capacity? Because if we don't have enough capacity, we may disconnect from the system or customers cannot access their information. For example, a streaming service tracks the number of viewers during live events and add more servers automatically to handle spikes in viewership to prevent buffering and downtime. So if you are conducting a SOC engagement where you need to test the capacity, the availability of the service, well, you want to take a look at their managing processing capacity. How do they manage spikes in their system? For example, this company automatically adds more servers when they have a live event. Another availability criteria is ensuring system availability. What does that mean? It means the entity must identify environmental threat to its system like natural disaster, power outage, set up measures to detect and guard against these threats, and have a clear plan for responding to them. So making sure we have system availability 24/7 for whatever thread that we have. This include what? Regular backup, because when you want the system to be available in case something happened, you have a backup. Storing data offsite, because at any natural disaster, power, because we want to ensure it's available. Having alternative systems ready to take over if need be. We talked about hot site, warm site, and cold site. For example, a bank has sensors and alarm to detect flooding in its data center. What's the purpose? Is ensure if something happened to make it alert us. So in case of water detection, the system triggers an alert, automatically switches operation to another data center in a different location, initiate data recovery from backed up storage. And this is ensuring what? It's under availability, ensuring system availability. A1.3 under availability, we have testing recovery plans. What does that mean? It means the entity, the company, on a regular basis, it should test its recovery procedures to make sure it's working as planned, as effectively as it can be, and it can meet the organization need during actual emergency. For example, a hospital conduct quarterly disaster recovery drills simulating, an actual scenario where critical system fail. And this test, involved restoring clinical system from backup to ensure that patient services can continue smoothly even during a system outage. So those are the 3 availability criterias. Now, when it comes to processing integrity, what's processing integrity? Well, focuses on ensuring that all aspects of an entity's operation involving data processing are handled correctly and efficiently. This is the overall processing integrity. And this helps in what? It helps in delivering product or services that meet specific objectives in terms of quality and reliability. Now, within processing integrity, we have additional criteria like managing quality information. What does that mean? It means the entity must ensure that it obtains, uses, and shares accurate and relevant information to achieve its processing goal, which support the quality of its product and services. Well, what could be an example of this? For example, a software company gathers feedbacks from users on a regular basis and uses this information to update its development priorities to ensure that upgrades align with user needs and expectation. That's managing quality information. Looking at what we need, obtain information, study this information, and make the appropriate adjustment to support the quality of the product and services. And feedback is one of the best things you can do. Processing integrity, you want to control over system inputs, what goes into the system, and we have a lot of controls, IT controls about system input, but here we're looking at just the criteria in general. This entity sets up rules and procedures to control the information entering into the system, ensuring this data helps produce output, because the input should be good, otherwise the output is not good. Product and services report that fulfill the entity's goal. Here, an online retailer has automated checks to verify the accuracy of product pricing and stock level enter into its database, ensuring customers receive correct information and inventory is managed properly. So here, making sure when it comes to processing integrity, we have control over the input, what we input into the system. It's not only input, we want to make sure the processing, control over system processing. Here, the entity will have specific rules and procedures in place to manage how data is processed within its system to guarantee the resulting product, services, and report meet the objective. For example, a financial institution uses software to double-check calculation for loan eligibility and terms to make sure all offers meet regulatory standards and internal criteria. Now, obviously, if you have good input, good processing, you should have good output. The entity here ensures that the final output, whether it's a product or services or report, are delivered accurately, completely, and on time. For example, a manufacturing company has systems that automatically check and record the quality of the finished product before they are shipped to customers, making sure every item meets the company standard. This is part of processing integrity. If everything is processed good, the product and the services should be good as well. Also, when it comes to storage, we want to make sure we have the proper storage of data. The company has policies to store all incoming data data unprocessed and final output in a manner that maintain their accuracy, completeness, and timeliness, aligning with specified system requirement. For example, a hospital uses a digital system that securely stores patient record, ensuring they are updated in real time as new medical information becomes available and are accessible when need be for treatment. So those are the processing integrity criteria. Now for confidentiality, the C's, we have the first one, identification and maintenance of confidential information. But what is this criteria? What's this additional criteria? Focuses on the proper handling of confidential information within an entity to ensure such information remains secure and is used appropriately. How can we do this? Well, one of the additional criteria is identification and maintenance of confidential information. Here, the entity must accurately identify what information is confidential and have a system and process in place to maintain the confidentiality of this information. Again, aligning with the entity's objective. For example, a law firm classifies client communication as cases as confidential. It uses encrypted communication channel and restrict access to these documents to any unauthorized person, ensuring that sensitive information is not exposed to unauthorized individual. Another confidentiality basically criteria is disposal of confidential information. Here the entity must have procedures to safely dispose of what? Of confidential information in a manner that continues to protect confidentiality, because after something is deleted, you don't want someone to be able to retrieve it. For example, a healthcare provider uses secure shredding services to dispose of outdated patient record and uses certified software to securely delete electronic records, ensuring no sensitive information can be retrieved. Now we move to privacy. This additional criteria involve a series of guidelines aimed at safeguarding personal data throughout its life cycle. And these guidelines making sure that data is collected, used ethically, with transparency and respect for all individuals who submit their data to the company. How do they achieve this? Well, notice and communication of objective related to privacy. The entity inform individuals about how and why their personal data will be used, ensuring transparency to its privacy practices. They may send you something in the mail, or they make you sign a disclosure that they told you this. Notice. Choice and consent. Individuals are giving choices regarding the collection and use of their personal data and their consent to obtain before their data is processed. Collection. Personal data is collected only for specific, clear, and legitimate purpose, and collection is done in a lawful and fair manner. Use, retention, and disposal. Personal data is used only for the purposes specified at the time of the collection, whatever, tell me the reason. Retain only as necessary and dispose of securely when it's not needed. Access. Individuals have the right to access their personal data and correct it if necessary, ensuring data is accurate and complete. Disclosure and notification. The entity clearly discloses to third parties how personal data is handled and notifies individuals about who their data might be shared with. Quality. The entity ensures that personal data is accurate, complete, and up to date, appropriate for purposes for which it's used. So this deals with the quality of the data. Monitoring and enforcement. Practices for handling personal data are checked on a regular basis and monitored to ensure compliance with privacy policies and regulations. Let's take a look at this multiple choice question from farhatlectures.com. A rapidly growing online retailer is evaluating its current IT infrastructure to make sure it handled increasing traffic during peak shopping season. What should the retailer primarily focus on to enhance the system availability in line with the trust services criteria for availability? Encrypting customer data, monitoring and evaluating processing capacity, redesigning the website interface, increasing marketing budget. I would say increasing marketing budget has nothing to do with whether the IT infrastructure can handle increase in traffic. That's an easy elimination. Encryption deals with most confidentiality to protect the data. We're not talking about this, so we're down between two. Redesigning the website interface. The website interface is basically the front of the website. It's only like basically design. It has nothing to do. It doesn't help with traffic. So B will be the correct answer, because you want to monitor and evaluate the capacity, the processing capacity. Why? Because as traffic peaks, you want to make sure you have enough capacity to meet the demand. What should you do now? You want to go to Farhat Lectures, look at additional MCQs, additional resources if you're studying for your information systems and controls exam. Invest in yourself. Good luck, study hard, and of course, stay safe.